Police say Angeli Raiot was killed last week in a tourist town along Mexico's Caribbean coast.
As drug wars have raged across Latin America, the region has suffered almost unimaginable levels of violence.
State Department heightening its warning to Americans traveling to Mexico, where violent crimes are on the rise, even in tourist destinations.
The day 29-year-old travel vlogger Angeli Raiot arrived in Mexico, she was only looking forward to a few days of fun and relaxation, but she hadn't anticipated that she would never go on another vacation again. Cartel rivalry in Mexico is not new. The states experience varying degrees of clashes that result in the deaths of locals and law enforcement officers alike, but sometimes they also end up taking the lives of unsuspecting tourists. Angeli was a San Jose-based influencer who was caught between one such cartel clash and paid the price with her life. So, how did the incident unfold? Why didn't Angeli run away when she sensed danger? And who was responsible for firing at her? Stay tuned as we answer these questions and tell you the story of the innocent influencer who lost her life over a cartel clash. Angeli Raiot was an Indian travel vlogger from the United States. She came from Himachal Pradesh but was residing in San Jose, California for work. Apart from being an engineer at LinkedIn, she was a passionate influencer who loved to travel to distant corners of the world. She shared her experiences on her Instagram account, which boasted around 40,000 followers and hundreds of vibrant pictures from her holidays. People who love to travel have found creative ways to turn it into a full-time profession in the last 2 decades. Many of these travelers travel all year round and document their journey and trip details to help others out. Anjali had close to 700 pictures on her Instagram. Even though she wasn't a full-time traveler, anyone could tell that she loved roaming the world with her dear ones. Angeli arrived in Mexico in October 2021 to celebrate her 30th birthday with her husband. She was staying in Tulum, a popular Mexican travel destination frequented by hundreds of thousands of tourists every year.
Anjali Ryot had arrived in Tulum on Monday to celebrate her 30th birthday with her husband.
Anjali shared a beautiful picture from Tulum on her Instagram on October 18, 2021, to inform her followers about her arrival in Mexico. The caption said, "Hola from Tulum." It showed Angeli standing by a gorgeous pool in the Cielo Maya Hotel. She was wearing a white top with floral shorts, with a hat on her head, a crossbody purse dangling on her side, and shades in her hand. Angeli was looking very relaxed in the picture. She then shared another photo on October 19th in which she was holding a drink while sitting in a restaurant called Funky Geisha Tulum. The caption said, "Worry less, drink more." It was evident that she was having an amazing time. Her last post was a reel, posted on October 20th. She wore an orangish-red swimsuit and walked towards a hammock in the pool area of the Cielo Maya Hotel. The caption said, "Vibing with the ocean." Later that day, Angeli and her husband Utkarsh Shrivastava visited a popular restaurant in Tulum named La Malquerida. They were at the terrace, where they were chatting with other travelers after dinner. At 10:30 in the evening, a man came running into the restaurant as if looking for a place to hide. 4 other men entered the dining area of the restaurant following him. They were armed and opened fire at a nearby table. Angeli, her husband, and the other tourists were taken by surprise. The attack happened within a matter of seconds, and they didn't have a chance to get away to save their lives. The bullets hit Angeli and another German tourist. Angeli lost her life on the spot.
Video captured moments after the shooting appears to show a woman lying on the ground as others gather around to help. Shortly after, an ambulance arrives.
The German woman passed away after she was taken to the hospital. The German woman was later identified as Jennifer Hensoldt. 2 other German men and a Dutch woman were wounded during the firing, but they survived the attack. The incident took place in Tulum's Mini Quinta, which is a smaller version of the famous bar and restaurant zone of Playa del Carmen, known as Quinta Avenida or Fifth Avenue. Police managed to arrest 1 suspect from the crime scene.
1 suspect was wounded at the scene and later arrested, officials say.
Right after the incident, the German Foreign Office issued a travel advisory for German travelers in Mexico, asking them to stay cautious. But who were the people who opened fire at them? Did they know Angeli and orchestrate an attack? Or was she at the wrong place at the wrong time? The fact that the people of Mexico have become accustomed to cartel rivalry and clashes is incredibly alarming. It's an open secret that various narcotics cartels run the government and a portion of law enforcement agencies and have dominance over various territories. This gives them power over the authorities and a license to do whatever they want. Narcotics trafficking cartels like the Gulf Cartel, the Los Zetas, the Sinaloa Cartel, and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, have been some of the notable contributors to the growing violence, and people in their country fear them more than anything else.
3 main cities in Tamaulipas bordering the U.S., which are dominated by different factions of the Gulf Cartel and the Zetas. It's a state where people show more respect to the cartels than to the authorities, and where the citizens and the law enforcement personnel live in a constant state of tension and suspicion towards one another.
Their operations revolve around producing complex concoctions of narcotics and selling them within and across borders for huge profits.
What was once produced in the back of camper vans is now produced in huge quantities and makes huge profits for the cartels.
Many of these cartels regularly clash over narcotics smuggling routes. Each cartel rules over one territory, and they often rent the passages to their rival cartels to earn extra money. When one passage or plaza becomes slightly more profitable than the other, rival cartels attack the area to capture it. The cartel owning the area then fights back to maintain dominance over their territory. This often results in the deaths of hundreds of cartel soldiers, police officers, and innocent locals.
Los Zetas have become kind of public enemy number one in Mexico for the Mexican public, but also for the government. And they have become the primary target for the government to attack and to take down, because they see them as being one of the large problems of Mexico.
Some cartel members continued the fight even inside prisons. Ganging up on rival cartel inmates and taking their lives is also a common occurrence in Mexican prisons. Each prison is run by a particular cartel, so the authorities never do anything to take a step against these mindless manhunts. In 2010, 72 migrants lost their lives in the hands of the Los Zetas cartel because they thought they were potential recruits for their rival cartel. The incident had shaken the entire world and was known as the infamous San Fernando Massacre. The three-way war has uncounted casualties, their bodies dumped in mass graves that are discovered every now and then.
Over 27,000 have disappeared. Previously exhumed mass graves pepper the hills. It stinks of death up here.
So, did the perpetrators taking the lives of Anjali and Jennifer belong to any of these cartels? Yes, they did. An investigation found that the men who fired at each other belonged to 2 rival cartels that controlled the area: the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Los Pelones Cartel.
The shooting was between rival drug groups that operate street-level drug sales in that area.
The Los Pelones is a wing of the Gulf Cartel, and they're notorious for collecting extortion money from local bars and restaurants in Cancun. After 2020, they extended their illegal operations in Tulum and Playa del Carmen. The men who fired at Anjali were narcotics peddlers who controlled local street-level narcotics sales. They entered a brawl. One thing led to another, and they engaged in a gunfight, injuring 3 and taking the lives of 2 innocents.
Mexican police say that both women were innocent victims caught in the crossfire.
On October 22nd, 2 days after the incident, the attacking group left a chilling message at the Tulum local market of Quintana Roo. The hand-signed messages were an open letter to business owners and rival cartels from the Los Pelones cartel, who also called themselves the Shaved Heads. The sign said the shooting was a warning, so you can see we mean business. You either get in line, or we are going to continue shutting places down like the Mini Quinta, an apparent warning to pay extortion demands for protection money. The signs added, "We're in control here." It can be deduced that this attack was only to prove dominance over the local businesses, and might not have been done with a purpose. The fact makes the incident even more heartbreaking. Their rivalries will go on forever, but Anjali and Jennifer won't come back. They had a life full of adventures and opportunities lying in front of them that they would never get to live. This is not the first time that Mexico has failed to protect its tourists. Many innocents have lost their lives in cartel gunfights throughout the years, while many have succumbed to narcotics overdose.
Over the past 20 years, over 2 million people have been killed, as cartels have made billions.
The whole world has been taking note of the growing violence in Mexico. The U.S. State Department even put travel restrictions on a few Mexican states in the summer of 2023 because of heightened risks. They completely banned a few popular tourist destinations. Tourists were advised to be extra cautious when traveling in Cancun and Cabo, and reconsider visiting popular tourist destinations such as Puerto Vallarta. The State Department put a "do not travel" advisory on 6 Mexican states. Tamaulipas, Zacatecas, Sinaloa, Colima, Guerrero, and Michoacan.
The travel advisory for Tamaulipas State remains at level 4. Do not travel. We encourage Americans to heed that advice.
But why did the U.S. State Department impose the travel advisory? The reason lies in the unfortunate fact that despite the growing catastrophe, hundreds of thousands of U.S. citizens prefer Mexico as their first choice of travel destination. The number is only growing every year, and the U.S. authorities can't protect every one of them. The least they can do is issue an official warning.
Passenger volume between the US and Mexico this January 2023, actually up 24% compared to the same month in 2019. That's a larger rise than any other international destination. Mexico is a true favorite of American tourists.
A report stated that around 550 Americans were missing in Mexico as of 2023. The reasons could be either abduction or death from cartel violence, but either way, it's certain that those lost Americans are never returning home. Perhaps the biggest number of U.S. tourists got injured or unalived in Mexico in 2022. News of multiple eliminations and abductions of U.S. citizens in Mexico dominated the news portals. In January 2022, 2 Canadian tourists lost their lives over 2 rival cartel members entering a brawl and eventually drawing weapons to open fire. The incident took place in a popular Mexican resort that is frequented by hundreds of thousands of U.S. and other international tourists every year.
1 person is killed and 2 others injured at a shooting at a resort near Playa del Carmen in Mexico. All of the victims are said to be Canadian.
In March 2022, a British businessman called Chris Cleave took a bullet in Cancun and passed away right in front of his 14-year-old daughter. He had stopped at a traffic signal near Playa del Carmen when 2 armed men fired at his car. His daughter escaped the scene and saved her life, but Chris passed away. Chris received Mexican citizenship in 2013 and had been living here since. Authorities suspected that he had a professional rivalry or clash with one of the cartels, which might have led to this premeditated homicide. Chris's daughter will now live with this trauma for the rest of her life. In June 2022, police found the bodies of 2 Canadian citizens in an apartment in Playa del Carmen. The couple was from Quebec. They had deep wounds in their throats. Authorities identified the male victim as an international fraud, and police were already searching for him. They probably had issues with a local cartel who had taken their revenge when they got the chance. Even after these incidents, 2023 gave the world the biggest shocker when a tourist named Dustin Jackson was mercilessly attacked in Mexico and was left for dead. Dustin was visiting Cancun with his wife in February 2023 to celebrate Valentine's Day. The couple was waiting for their flight home to Salt Lake City when just a few hours before boarding, Jackson decided to buy some chewing tobacco. He got in a cab and visited the local gas station, which didn't have the product. His cab driver offered to take him to another store. Dustin agreed. As he got out of the vehicle and entered the new shop, someone hit him in the back of his head, and he saw darkness all around him. The place wasn't a shop or a grocery store, and Dustin had just been abducted. He woke up in a ditch hours later.
He says there's going to be just a grocery store. So I get out and I'm like, okay, as I'm walking in, then boom, lights out. Next thing I know, I am waking up in a ditch.
By this time, Dustin noticed that he was mugged and severely injured. He was missing his credit card. The abductor had sliced open his foot, and the bottom was connected to the ankle and was flopping like a flap. His arms and legs had cuts on them, as if the abductor wanted to stitch his tendons to ensure that he wouldn't make it alive.
They off the entire bottom of my foot, so they went to cut my Achilles tendon, and they missed, and instead of hitting it, they hit the bottom of the foot and then my foot just flapped around.
Dustin went out in the streets and begged for help, but no one came to his rescue. Even some officers refused to help him despite his condition. As Dustin was about to give up, he crawled under a tarp to count his last breaths, but then he suddenly remembered his family. This gave him a reason to keep moving forward and seek help.
At this point, this is when, however long I was laying there, pretty much just waiting to die, something inside of me, that strength came to me and said, you got family, you got kids, get up.
He came across a female police officer who took pity on him and drove him to the airport. A fellow African traveler had her flight canceled. She listened to Dustin and made a call to his wife immediately.
And finally, this lady from Africa, her flight got canceled. That's why she stopped.
Dustin's wife sent him some money, and the woman checked him into a hotel and bought him an air ticket for home. Dustin managed to fly back safely. Once he reached the US, he was under intensive care and had to go through multiple surgeries. He has lost his shoulder and is unable to partake in sports.
My shoulder's completely fake now. There is no more real bone in there, and the doctors think it's from them throwing me out of a vehicle probably.
But Dustin didn't take his life for granted. He is using this second chance to raise awareness about the incident that almost took his life in Mexico. He couldn't continue his job, but he started a YouTube channel. He also started raising money online to turn his story into a documentary in the hopes of saving more lives. Right after this incident, in March 2023, sisters Maritza Rios and Marina Rios and their friend, Dora Sayans from Texas, visited Mexico. Their families became concerned when they lost contact with the three women and quickly filed missing complaints at the local police station. Locals had seen them riding a car on the way to a market, and that was the last time anyone saw them. It was a possible case of abduction.
Police say the three women were last headed to a flea market in a green pickup truck. Their family now suspects they were kidnapped.
As of December 2023, their case is still unsolved. No one knows what happened to them or where they went. No one called their families for ransom, or their bodies weren't found anywhere. The world can only hope that they didn't end up in one of the mass graves. March 2023 lists another unfortunate incident. Four friends, U.S. citizens, Washington McGee, Eric Williams, Shaeed Woodard, and Zindel Brown, drove into Tamaulipas for a short tour. One of them had a plastic surgery scheduled in Mexico. Unfortunately, they discovered themselves in the middle of a cartel war. Their helpless states appeared in surveillance footage that showed the panicked visitors scrambling to save their lives as they were being dragged into cartel vehicles.
4 Americans driving from South Carolina into northeast Mexico were mistakenly targeted by cartel gunmen. Video showing their violent abduction after authorities say the cartel members opened fire.
Law enforcement officers began searching for the friends and found them in a rural area. 2 of the friends had passed away, and the other 2 were barely alive. Authorities returned them to the United States immediately. Apart from these incidents, 2023 saw a significant number of cartel clashes, resulting in the deaths of locals and tourists, abductions resulting in missing tourists, and random firings at resorts and popular tourist destinations that caused panic in visitors. But not only cartels, random criminals with access to Mexico are also choosing their lands to conduct crimes and running back to their home countries to prevent getting caught. In August 2020, a 23-year-old mother of 2 named Lizbeth Flores crossed the borders of Texas to go meet her boyfriend in Matamoros, Mexico. As the location was just across a river, she often used to visit him. Her mother, Maria Rubio, was aware of their arrangement and often looked after her grandchildren when her daughter was away. On August 9, 2020, Lizbeth suddenly told her mother that she had to visit her boyfriend urgently, but she didn't give her a reason. Mara was slightly suspicious, but she didn't probe too much. But when Lizbeth didn't return home that night as promised, she was concerned. Mariah went to the police the next morning and filed a complaint. The Texan police began looking for her and also alerted the Mexican authorities. They confirmed that Lizbeth had crossed the border into Mexico through the Veterans International Bridge the day before. The combined search led to finding Lizbeth's lifeless body dumped in a field near a construction site. Her shirt was missing, and her body had multiple wounds, hinting at the fact that she had been through an assault and a great deal of torment before losing her life. An even more disturbing fact was that all her teeth were ripped out from her mouth, and her skull was missing parts, as if hit by something heavy.
All of her teeth were taken out, and she was so bruised. Police believe that she was tortured. Blunt force trauma to the head on this beautiful young 23-year-old mom, likely from a rock near where her body was found.
Police soon captured the perpetrator, Braulio Martinez, a week after they found Lizbeth's body. Martinez had called Lizbeth and told her that her boyfriend had been abducted. He had claimed a ransom and urged her to pay as soon as possible if she wanted to see her boyfriend alive. Lizbeth panicked and crossed the border to Mexico, where she was assaulted. The incident took her life. Had Mexico arranged better surveillance in their remote areas and conducted proper scrutiny at the border, this incident could have been prevented, just like many other cases occurring within their borders every day. Angeli's family members were left devastated when they received the news of their daughter passing away. Her father, K.D. Ryot, mother Nirmala, and brother Ashish remembered Anjali as a warm soul focused on her career. She believed in enjoying every second of her life. Reportedly, after the incident, Anjali's husband called Ashish, who lived in Chicago. The brother then called his parents with the bad news. Anjali's remains were brought to India on October 27, 2021. Her body was flown to Chandigarh and then driven to Solan. Her family held a small prayer at the local St. Stephen's Church, after which her body was cremated at a local graveyard. Anjali left for the United States in 2012 to pursue a master's in San Jose State University. Prior to that, she received a B.Tech from an Indian university after finishing high school in Solan, Himachal Pradesh. According to her father, Anjali had returned to India from California sometime in the late 2019 to early 2020 to complete a diploma. She had gone to her parents right after completing the course and had stayed with them for 3 to 4 months. The elderly couple didn't know that they were meeting their daughter for the last time. The incident has sparked concern in other tourists as well. Many tourists seek to make Mexico their second home, but this incident has made them question their decision. U.S. tourist James Graham had come to Tulum to buy a property to rent out on Airbnb to earn some extra cash, but after this incident, he lost interest. He told reporters that he believed that large tourist areas in Mexico were free from these occurrences, but seeing it unfold with his own eyes had shaken his faith. He urged the authorities to ensure its tourist safety. I think that what was surprising is we figured that this type of crime wouldn't necessarily be where the main tourist areas are, just because it's such a big part of the economy. You would think that you would be very careful to make sure that you know the tourists feel very safe coming here. However, the administration of the current Mexican president Andrés Manuel López Obrador seemed hopeful about Tulum. Reportedly, they expressed desire to build an international airport and a stoppage for the Maya train there. Their enthusiasm hinted at the possibility of the violence in Tulum being in control, which might only be true in theory. The airport construction has since been completed, and the Felipe Carrillo Puerto International Airport has begun operating from December 1, 2023. The development might increase the influx of international tourists into Mexico, and if the number of such incidents don't decline, we might have more unfortunate deaths in our hands in the upcoming years. What did you think of the untimely demise of the influencer, Angeli Raiot? Do you think the incident could have been avoided? Do you believe that law enforcement of Mexico is doing enough to prevent these attacks? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.